We play and call it work.
Hey everybody, Matthew here from MiniWarGaming.com, and welcome to this week's Sit and Talk, a show where we sit down and we talk about, well, whatever you guys ask us about. It's just a more behind the scenes, get to know us, and just interact as well. We switch out every week. Next week will be Josh, so if you want to leave questions for him, leave those in the comments below. And I'm just going to jump right into it and just start answering your questions. So let's start from the bottom. 6 Millie. Hello, Matt. Quick question. When are we going to see you play a game of Adeptus Titanicus? It is possible that you may find, as many have, that there is a valid argument to be made for it being the most well-designed and tactically efficient and balanced of the Games Workshop games. I know Josh really wants me to play it, and it looks super interesting, both as a 40K fan and as a Battletech fan. Obviously, that stands out to me as something that I'd want to try out. And so I do want to try it. I don't know when that's going to happen, mainly because of scheduling. Right now we're in the middle of filming a narrative campaign. I'm filming with Dave and Josh. It's a post-apocalyptic one that uses the rule set for This Is Not a Test, and it's just been so much fun. It's been a blast. And then I'm also like neck deep in web development as well, and working with a new web developer to help me out as well. So that hopefully will pan out and allow me to have more time to film more than what I have been in the past. So that's why you haven't seen me as much in regular battle reports, because I've been focusing on narrative campaigns and on web development, such as the narrative campaign that I'm creating. There's two more that I'm working on. So we're currently filming the post-apocalyptic one, which I think is awesome. I hope that you guys will give it a chance. I know it's not 40K, but the rule system is straightforward, and it's fun. It's a good, fun system. This is not a test. It's straightforward, but it has a lot of good crunchiness in the campaigns. But it's not hard to understand. There's just lots of options, which makes for interesting, varied kind of gameplay. And then after that, I am working on two other campaigns. One is a Battlefleet Gothic / 40K hybrid campaign, where we'll decide the fate of the pariah. Oh wow, my brain! I just forgot the name of the sector that I created, the Kusula sector, from the Hungary Nexus. The Tyranids on one side and the Necrons on the other, and then we're going to be putting all sorts of other little factions in there as well. So there'll be games of Battlefleet Gothic for Void Supremacy, and then games of 40K for Ground Supremacy, which will be a lot of fun. So the main two players, and that will be Steve and Luca, and then we'll have other people come in, because as there's actually a map, and they're going to be moving their fleets around, and when they come in contact with each other, they'll fight each other. If they come in contact with the planet that is owned by the other person, then they'll fight each other on the planet. But they might also come in contact with other fleets that are piloted by, they're kind of like NPC fleets, except that they'll be run by, like Josh might be playing some, and Skari wants to play some, and that'd be kind of fun as well. Or I might play some as well, because I'll be games master in the whole thing. And so there will be other factions going on there, but the main thing is to discover, will the Tyranids consume the sector, or the Necrons be able to establish the Pariah Nexus and push it back? And then the other campaign, which I'm really excited for, is another Death Watch campaign. And I want to tell you about its setting, but I can't yet. I just have to keep refining it. There's still more to be done with it, but it's a really cool setting. And it's actually going to be fishing back from one of the previous Death Watch campaign stories. It's most likely not going to continue Inquisitor Rin right now, because he's the main kind of story element through all the Death Watch campaigns, but it's going to go back to something that happened in the Space Hulk Death Watch campaign, and it's going to continue that storyline specifically. And so I'm really excited for that. I've already got the art done for it. I've got to work on the rules for it, and I'm going to try to actually, if I have the time, to make a complete Death Watch rule set. Because in the past, I've only created it as much as I need based on what my players are going to be doing. So if they're only, like the last one, for example, Steve was the main, it was only one player with Steve, and this one's going to have multiple players. And Steve just wanted to do Phobos Primaris. That's the stealthy Primaris. And so I only wrote rules for them. But this time I want to be more robust with it, so that it can become a rule set that you guys can use at home if you want to, obviously, and have some fun building Death Watch kill teams and GMing cool stories and upgrade systems for all that. That will kind of, it's not going to be balanced by any, it doesn't need to be balanced. It's like a role-playing system, right? It doesn't need to be perfectly balanced. It just needs, as long as you have a games master in there to help shake things up. I'm recording. Is it an emergency? No? Okay, good. The nerve of people these days. Anyways, so yeah, so that's my current focus is on that and on web development. So Adeptus Titanicus, I'd love to do a campaign with it actually. That would be a lot of fun. And so yeah, I want to, but it's not on the docket. It's not coming up anytime soon, but I do want to. There's a lot of games I want to play, and I'm hoping that I'll have more time to kind of branch out into these other games. It's tough because obviously when I do some like 40K narrative campaigns and Age of Sigmar narrative campaigns, they do the best. So I'm trying to find ways to better craft narrative campaigns that use other gaming systems that will draw people in, and you don't really have to know much about the rules in order to enjoy it, and you can just enjoy more of the story about it. I know I've had comments for that. I remember on the Conquest of Blood Age of Sigmar narrative campaign, which I did and I released back in the summer, I had a lot of comments on there saying, I don't play Age of Sigmar, but I really enjoyed watching this because, you know, there's a story, there's the interaction with the character, with the players, and all of that. And you don't have to know what everything means. And it's different. It's a different experience, right? They don't have to use perfect strategy. They have to role play. They have to do what the character would do, not what the best thing for winning the scenario is. And that's a lot of fun. It changes how you view the game, and it also allows you to play with elements of the game that you normally wouldn't because maybe they're too underpowered or maybe too overpowered or whatever it happens to be. So I want to try to branch out to that into other games and see if we can make that work on our channel and actually get enough views and vault signups to make it be able to pay for itself at the very least. And so we're going to try to figure that out. If you have any suggestions on how we can make that work, I'm all ears. Like I've thought of things like, well, maybe we need to like kickstart those kind of campaigns just so we can get like the support behind them and get the money to make them. And then if they don't get great views and vault signups afterwards, it's okay because we've at least paid for them with the Kickstarter. Or maybe we need a separate vault membership that's for the non-Games Workshop stuff so that people can show their support in that and be like, well, you know what, I want you to increase your content of non-Games Workshop stuff, so I'm going to sign up for that membership, either in addition to or separate from your main vault membership, which mainly has 40K and Age of Sigmar. I'm not sure what the best way to approach this is because we need to make it profitable so that so it's viable for us to do and continue as a business. But we also want to showcase you guys more than just Games Workshop stuff. Not because we hate Games Workshop. I've always wanted to do more, and we used to do more, but we had to kind of focus on what made the most money. But now that we're here and we've grown, and we've gotten to this point, I feel like it's time now that we can kind of flip the script. Whereas we were using the brand recognition of Warhammer and Games Workshop to build our business, now that we have our own brand recognition, maybe we could flip that and use our brand recognition to help grow these other games. And that's my dream, is to be able to have that influence and to be able to help these other games to grow their markets. They won't be as big as Games Workshop, and that they don't need to be. That's the nice thing about it. But we have to be able to make money while we're doing that. Otherwise, I can't pay my employees, and I can't pay the rent and all that kind of stuff too. So there's a lot to think about. So if you have any thoughts on that, feel free to comment. Flavithought. Hey Matthew, thanks for all the great content. Well, thank you. What's your favorite demon model across Age of Sigmar and 40K? Love watching you guys. Well, Be'lakor obviously is a really cool one. One that's kind of half demon, half mortal would be the Archaon model. I think that model is just fantastically awesome. I don't know if actually it's a demon. I think it's all mortal. Even the steed, I think, is just warped. So maybe that wouldn't count as a demon model. The Lord of Change and the Fate Weaver models are gorgeous. It helps that the ones that we have are like spectacularly painted. So I love those. The Bloodthirster models, like all the greater demon ones, they look cool, but I think out of all the greater demons, the Tzeentch ones are by far the best eye candy. And then Be'lakor, they did a great job with Be'lakor. Like he's a great model. If I was to look at the smaller scale demon stuff, none of it really stands out to me, I'll be honest, from any of them. Whether it's, the Tzeentch, Nurgle, Khorne, or Slaanesh. I haven't really looked at any of those models and thought, wow, that's super awesome. But they're not because they're bad, but because like it's fun to play with the horrors, right? Because they're all just like these weird, warped kind of things that just run around the field, just shooting their warp fire at you. So yeah. So I'd say though that it would be, if I had to rank them, I'd probably put like, if we take Archaon out of it, because I don't think his steed is a demon. Although no, he's got the demon keyword, so it must be. Yeah, he must be, because he's obviously got the demon keyword, so there must be a demon in there somewhere, and it's not him, so it must be a steed. So he'd be like number 1. The Lord of Change / Fate Weaver, because they come from the same kit. Definitely right up there with him. And then I say Be'lakor after that. Demon Wolf, Lord of the Lore, Matthew. Well, thanks, I guess. Hope the family is doing well. Would it be possible to run a Victory is Vengeance campaign with the Shattered Legions? It's always possible. I don't have any interest to do that, I'll be honest. Horus Heresy is not my cup of tea. It's not something I'm interested in. And we've run a couple Victory is Vengeance campaigns, and they haven't done particularly well. Now, that doesn't mean that's because we shouldn't do those. It might just be the way we did them. But it's a cool concept. For those of you not familiar, Victory is Vengeance is a campaign system in Horus Heresy, where rather than upgrading, it's just like a hopeless fight to the death. And so you just downgrade and things die. And so yeah, so with the Shattered Legions, that'd be cool, but I don't have any interest in doing that, so I wouldn't expect that anytime soon or at all. If you had input into the next Genestealer Cult Codex, what would you include? See, my area that I care about the most is the Crusade rules, so I'd really want them to include some sort of interesting rules to represent the rise of a cult. And not just that your cult is growing bigger and now you add more models to it, but something extra on top of that, like a political influence counter. Because what we've seen with some of the other ones, not all of them, but some of the other ones, they have like the normal agendas and battle traits and relics and all that kind of stuff, which is super cool. But then what really makes that super awesome cool is usually something like the Dark Angels one, of course I'm familiar with because I made a campaign out of it. They had their Fallen or their Unforgiven points, which is them basically hunting the Fallen. And when you got enough of them, then you could actually play a mission that was special to actually go after Fallen Dark Angels. The Dark Eldar have like a pillaging one. The Orcs have a looting one. Like, it's just super cool. So I like to see something like that for the Genestealer Cult, where there's something unique that's for their Crusade rules. Honestly, that's what I would care about the most. Competitive-wise, things come and go competitively, so yeah, you gotta fix them so that they're more competitive. Overall, they're pretty crap. I know there's always 1 or 2 ways to play bad codexes and make them okay. But I know I want everything to be viable. But I can't think of anything particular that I would change, except maybe allow the Brood Brothers to work a little better. So there's kind of a separation in the Codex of the Brood Brothers, which is like your Astra Militarum, your Imperial Guard, who are mind-controlled or just believe in the cult. And then you have the actual Genestealer Cult, which is actual Genestealer broods, like hybrids and all that kind of stuff. There's a difference between them. And so they get the people of the planet on their side, either by mind control or just by manipulation, by political manipulation, by presenting themselves as the good guys, which isn't very hard in an imperial or an Imperium city or planet. And so I'd love for those to be able to have a bit more synergy. But yeah, they obviously, like the general sweeping, take everything that's there and make it all work balanced wise. But like I said, that comes and goes. The meta comes and goes. So I care more about the narrative side of the rules, and I would really want to focus on making sure there's some really cool stuff in there. Finally, will there be any new Watchers in Death videos? I don't have any plans for that. That doesn't mean there won't be. I can only make so many narrative campaigns per year, so I'm pretty limited in my choices. So it has to be a good synergy of what I am super enthusiastic to do and what is more likely to make us money. And so I've always got more ideas than time, which I think is a good thing. I'd rather have more ideas than time than more time than ideas. So Watchers in Death, I would love to do another sequel to that, because I think we've done 2. Did we do 2 of those? Or either that, or I at least created the story for the second one. I can't even remember, because we've done so many of these. I think I've made over 50 narrative campaigns in total, and so I can't keep track of them all anymore. I always have to go back and rewatch certain parts of them to remind myself of the story, because it's not all up here. And it's not even all written out either. A lot of it's made up and improv on the spot. Please keep the great content coming and say hi to the guys and gal for me. Will do. Orky Benji, Matt, if you could snap your fingers and bring a miniature line and rule set into existence for any sci-fi or fantasy IP, what would you choose? For me, it would be a fast-paced 15mm StarCraft game or a skirmish Final Fantasy war game. Okay, if we're talking about an existing IP to bring in, see, the IPs that I really care about already have war games. I love Skyrim. It's got a war game now. I love Fallout. It's got an official one, and then we've got other post-apocalyptic ones like Gaslands and This Is Not a Test and many others. Star Wars obviously has their own line. Star Trek I don't think would make sense as a miniature game. So and I don't think I'd care for that to be. That's a different kind of show. Even like Marvel has their own. StarCraft would be cool, yeah. 15 millimeter. 15 millimeter is always fun because then you can put more on the table. But at the same time, the 28 millimeter gives you nicer looking models overall, right? So I can't think of any because there's been so many IPs that have been licensed into the miniature wargaming industry that they kind of cover the things that I already care about. So, sorry. Nelongelo, Matt in the Death Watch campaign, one of my favorites. When Season 2? I've had the Death Watch return in some other narrative campaigns, but not their own season. When they reached Trazian's museum and released the Sentinels of the Forge, why did the knight blow up? He was one of my favorite characters from the Storms of Ixia campaign, probably my favorite of all the old narrative campaigns, and managed to hold his own against so much. I don't remember why I chose that at the time. Maybe just out of some sort of impact. I'm sorry that I killed a character that you really care about. I know it sucks when you don't have that control and you want them to do different things. But I really enjoyed doing the Death Watch campaign. That was a fun one to make. So, Hunter Ordo. Hey Matt, hope your new little one is doing well. She is. She's now 2 months old. Hard to believe. How are you feeling about your upcoming Tomb King game against Steve? Oh yeah, I hadn't forgotten about that, but this moment I had forgotten about that. I'm looking forward to it. I've wanted to be on a live battle report for a little while, but the scheduling has never worked out. So for those of you who don't know, Steve has his own channel, Mountain Miniatures Games, I think is what it's called. And he does lots of live battle reports. He's been really getting into that. And because of that, he's actually been getting us into live stuff. So you can thank him for any of the live stuff that we're really doing, besides Shrine of Chaos, which Dave was already doing. And so I happened to jump on last Saturday. I was home alone because my wife had taken all the kids, and which was great. And so I was just cleaning, and I was listening to it in the background. And then I jumped on and I saw and I said hi, and a commenter said, "Hey, when are you going to come on?" And I just made a joke. I'm like, I don't know, let's do a super chat challenge. What is it? $250, $500? I'm like, I'll tell you what, you guys raise $250 in a super chat, which goes to Steve after YouTube takes its cut. And I'll play with it the next month. And they hit that within like 10 minutes. So I should have said like $500 and made it harder. Not because I don't want to go in, but because I think they would have hit that 500 too. And so I talked to Steve afterwards, and he's happy for that. And I'm going to play Tomb Kings against whatever he decides. I'm going to be rusty as heck. I don't have any time to review the rules. I played a lot of Warhammer Fantasy back in the day, so there's some basis. There's going to be some things that'll come back to me right away. But Steve's basically going to have to help me through a lot of it. But I look forward to being on a live show and interacting with people live. So that'll be this Saturday. Actually, by the time you see the sit and talk, it may already be done. But you can see it on Steve's channel, Mountain Miniature Games. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that. Tara J459. Hello, Matt. I was wondering what painting studios do you use for the armies at MiniWarGaming? I've recently acquired more models for my Salamander's army and my Age of Sigmar Sylvaneth army, but due to recent changes at work, I haven't had time to paint them. We use a lot of local painters. The reason we mainly, there's a lot of good painting studios out there that are not local to us, but the reason we mainly use local is because our turnaround times usually have to be pretty fast. So shipping there and back is not really really an option for a lot of the stuff. And so we've got a lot of local ones. I don't want to just name off a couple here because it'll be one of those grandmother syndromes that if I don't mention one, then they might think that I like them less or something. I'm not sure if you've ever heard the joke where the grandma or the mom gave her son 2 sweaters for Christmas, and then the next time she visited, he decided to wear one of them to show that he appreciated it. And the first thing she says is, "What, didn't you like the other one?" That kind of thing. So if you're interested, you can just email me, Matthew@MiniWarGaming.com. I can give you some recommendations. But yeah, there's a lot of good painters. There's a lot of good ones outside of Welland and our area as well too, international ones too. So tons of good ones, which is great. Freefall Andy. Hey Matt, have you ever considered playing the 9th Age? It's basically balancing 8th edition to make all armies more competitive. Is that the same as Warhammer Projects? Because I think that's what I'm going to be playing with Steve on Saturday, or is 9th Age something totally different? So I know that they've been doing different editions, and one of them is called Warhammer Projects, I thought, Warhammer Army Projects, which is supposed to be like updating them. And I'm not sure if that's the same as Ninth Age. I know when Warhammer Fantasy was canceled and Age of Sigmar came in, that there was a few offshoots, you know, like obviously Kings of War picked up a bunch of customers there. There was the Ninth Age, which I thought was I'm not really sure which one is which. But personally, I'm not like a huge Warhammer Fantasy fan. I'm gonna have fun playing with Steve because I have fun playing war games. I don't have to play the war game I love the most to have fun. I don't know if it's the rank and file aspect of it or if it's just the generic fantasy aspect of it. And I know I can get a lot of people up in arms saying that. I know they're not. It's just generic fantasy. It has its own story and its own lore. But in the end, it's elves and dwarves and orcs and stuff like that. And I know Age of Sigmar is that too. And but you know, they try to branch out to more. So, but once again, I know that's a touchy subject for some people. So yeah, so it's not something that is on my radar. Something I'm super interested in. I understand if you stayed away due to Games Workshop connections. Okay, I'll come back to that. I'd really like to hear your take on the project. Love the content. Much love to all of you. We don't really, just so you know, our relationship with Games Workshop, there's no serious partnership going on here. They don't pay us to do stuff. They definitely send us free stuff, like a lot of other YouTubers. And we do our best to cover that free stuff. It's tough because sometimes we only get it like right before when we're allowed to post it. And so there's not any time for us to decide to do that. So we're very grateful to Games Workshop for that, to sending us lots of free models and releases and all that kind of stuff. But that's about it. That's about all we do. I think maybe partly due to the pandemic, I don't feel quite as connected to them as I did in the past. Even if I did, though, that wouldn't stop me from doing other games. We do our best not to do anything exclusively with companies because it limits our abilities to work with other companies. So we don't cover Games Workshop games because we have a thing with Games Workshop. We cover them because they're the most popular. That's really what it comes down to. And we need to make money, and so we need viewers. And if you want viewers, you go where it's popular, right? Thankfully, the industry is changing, and there's more options. Because I love Warhammer 40K. I love Age of Sigmar. But when you play them over and over and over and over again, you get bored, right? Especially if there's not something new for you, a new codex for you. Like, sure, a new Dark Angel codex came out, but Steve likes that. I don't really care about Dark Angel. So it's, you know, when a new Tyranid codex comes out, or these new Tyranid updates, those are interesting, but I want a full new codex. Or a Genes That Are Called codex, then, you know, that'll get me wanting to play some at 40K for a while, and then I'll get bored again. When a new battle tome comes out for Age of Sigmar that I'm interested in, that gets me to play Age of Sigmar for a while, then I get bored again. It's nothing against the games. The best games, like I played Battlefleet Gothic. That's a super awesome game. I can guarantee if I played 10 games in a row, I'd get bored of it. Same thing with any other good game. I don't know, I just get bored easily of these kind of things. And so I like to move between them. I like the variety that I have. That's why I think every game should create its own internal variety. Games Workshop tries to do that with their games by having the narrative and the match play. I think that's a step in the right direction. And also their side games like Kill Team, Warcry, Warhammer Underworlds, that kind of stuff. But yeah. So there's no like serious relationship with Games Workshop that prevents us from doing stuff with other companies. So just so you know. Slessor, hi Matt, I have 8 kids and a moving house. Well, it's funny because I'm going to say the same things to you that people would say to us, and we'd be like, that's a funny thing to say, like, good job, congratulations, I can't imagine having that many, you know, all the normal platitudes that we say, but that's great. It's great. I like big families. My wife complained at my 17 boxes of unpainted miniatures and 4 large terrain boxes we had to put in storage. Do you get in trouble for having too many minis? No, all my miniatures are pretty much here at work. I don't really have anything at home. I don't actually do a whole lot of wargaming hobbying at home. I don't have time, given all the kids. Although you've got 8 and you find time, so I guess that's not an excuse. We do like Dungeons and Dragons a lot at home and that kind of stuff. But no, I get all my miniature wargaming fill at work, and so all those miniatures are here. And since I don't really paint, nothing really needs to be at home except for the odd few miniatures. So no, I don't have a pile of shame like is typical for miniature wargamers to have, because we get everything done through all our local painters. And that works awesomely, by the way. Entropy1, hi Matt, how come you don't play any or many games with Dave? I'm sure you guys are the best of friends, but it gives a Mythbusters vibe. Yeah, no, we don't have a relationship with each other like the Mythbusters relationship where they actually don't like each other but work each other. Dave is filming an entire narrative campaign with me right now. It just hasn't gone out yet. So you'll see him with me a lot there. Generally, scheduling-wise, it's just our schedules don't line up. And so that's really all. There's really nothing going on there. It's just scheduling. Mendig, hey Matt, will we see a return to the open vault on Fridays? Or it was Saturdays. I love seeing you guys when you're just chilling out and chatting together behind the scenes. I want to. It's been tough. Scheduling has been all over the place. And I know I keep using that excuse, but it really has. Like Dave's gone this week to Scotland and filming with Chaos Rising and a bunch of other people, as you may have noticed. And I just had a baby and I was off for a month. Like it's hard. We've been upping our production value. I'm not sure if you've noticed the quality of like the intros to the battle report. So there's been a lot of extra manpower put into stuff and web development for me, and it's been leaving us with little time. Now we're working on that. We're actually working on expanding our staff to include more content producers and more support, like video editors and stuff like that. That's going to be a slow change, but we are working on that, and so that'll give us more manpower, which will allow us to accomplish more of these projects, because I definitely want open vaults to be a regular thing. Jones Payne, hey Matt, first of all, I don't want to criticize negatively. That's okay, I can take it. You are all hardworking and creating some awesome content, but if I look at your MiniWarGaming Twitter or Facebook accounts, one could think that these are just Dave's private accounts. I like what you're saying there. I know he does the online content, but I would strongly suggest that you not only promote Dave as a person there, but also your content and whatever else cool stuff you do. Maybe he could post more stuff about what all other people at MiniWarGaming are doing instead of only pictures of him and what he is doing. Yeah, I know what you mean. I don't have a problem with it. To be fair, though, a lot of what he posts is not about him. It's about stuff that he finds on Instagram and stuff that's going on. But yeah, you're going to more often see Dave on there than you'll see me or Steve or Luke or Josh, because Dave does run it and he loves running the social media accounts. He just enjoys that so much. I'll pass that suggestion on to him because I don't disagree with it. At the same time, I'm not like bothered by it. It's not like he's building up himself so that he can leave the company and do his own thing. Like, he has no intentions of any of that. He has no desires to do any of that. And I'm just glad that our social media accounts are actually being taken care of, because in the past they've been neglected. And so he's worked really hard. We've got a lot more Facebook followers, a lot more Instagram followers than we did before. And he's been making a lot of good connections with other companies too. There's a lot of good networking going on there. And so there's a lot of other benefits there than what you guys see. And I'm very happy with that work that he's done. But yeah, it's not a bad suggestion, just to kind of focus on what other people are doing as well, kind of like a behind-the-scenes thing as well. Ara Shiha, hey Matt, question, where's Steve been? Haven't seen his sit and talk for quite a bit. He's just not as interested in doing them, and I don't want to force him to. That's really all there is. You still obviously see him in battle reports and stuff, so that's really it. There's not much, there's no drama, there's nothing really extra going on there. It's just as simple as that. Power Design Kid. Hey, I'm Matt. Could you do a special sit and talk with Kenny as host? I know you saw him in last week's, right? He seems pretty rad and would be interesting to hear about what it's like to be on the periphery of MiniWarGaming. Kind of like a behind the scenes from the perspective of a mostly innocent bystander. Well, I probably would have a sit and talk with just Kenny, but it's not a bad idea to include him here and there, because he has been, especially recently and in the past, has been here a lot. So it could be interesting to get a little behind the scenes. I'll pass it on to Luca, see if he'll do that. And then we got Franciscard. Hey Matt, do you think releasing sub-factions with new codexes is now the standard for Games Workshop? Example, Beast Snagas. What would you expect or like to see as a sub-faction for Tyranids when they release a new codex? Is that a new thing? Or like, is that now the standard for Games Workshop? I think they've always kind of expanded lines with sub-factions, if you think about it. Yeah, like they usually expand in like themes, right? Whether it's Primaris Marines expanding the Space Marines, or whether it's Beast Snagas, or whether, I'm trying to think of some other examples, like Necron's coming out with kind of a new theme, like there's a new story being told, and so a bunch of new stuff comes out with that. It's usually story related, because that's how they can sell them. If I were to say with the sub-faction for the Tyranids, I get to ask this question a lot. If I was in charge of a codex writing, what would I do? And the honest answer is, I don't know. I'm not very creative when it comes to those kind of things. It's I'm more like to judge it after it comes out. Like, don't we all? But for Tyranids, I don't know. See, once again, I would focus on the Crusade rules and that area of things. A sub-faction of Tyranids. I don't know. Recently, there was There was a story in a White Dwarf or a Warhammer Community article where they talked about an underwater fight between Space Marines and Tyranids. And they had like Hormagaunts, but instead of legs, they had fins. So you can do cool stuff like that. But obviously, that would only work for underwater combat. So I don't know. I'm not really good at coming up with those kind of ideas. The Overbob. Hey Matt, cannot wait for the next Deathwatch narrative campaign. Would be really cool to see you adapt the new Kill Team rules to your style of narrative campaign. Oh, okay, I see. Kill Team as that. I think the melee system is especially suited to a dramatic narrative story game. Do you think you will try, or will you stick to the 40k rules for narrative campaigns? I think I'll stick to the 40k rules, but you are making me now want... I actually haven't played Kill Team for a very long time. So you're saying that there's a difference in the melee system than what it used to be? And I really haven't kept up to date with Kill Team. Then I will check that out, because in the past I have changed core rules. Like for example, one of the Deathwatch campaigns, I introduced a stat called shooting attacks. So you have your attacks, which is how many attacks you get in close combat, and then I added SA, so shooting attacks, and it's how many times you could basically fire. So and the Deathwatch all started with 2, and some of them would get up to 3. So if you had a bolter and your shooting attacks was 2, then you could fire the bolter twice. If you're in rapid fire range, that means you're firing it. You get 4 shots. And the idea behind that was that because I was buffing up the toughness of the Marines, but I wasn't increasing their killing power, at least at the lower levels, then you had to throw more enemies at them to give them a threat, but then they just get bogged down by all those enemies. So I wanted to give it more like heroic, they're able to just kill more stuff a lot faster. And so I did that, and there's like that kind of concept. So there are things that I'm willing to do to the core rules to change it. It's nice to stick with 40k though, because it's familiar to more people, and also because of getting people to watch the campaign too. If they know it's Kill Team rules, then I think you'll get a lot less viewers. Not because Kill Team's bad, but there's just less people watching it. But I will check that out. That actually is thank you for that prompt, and I will check that out for it. Okay, I think I'm almost out of questions. I got one more source to check. Oh. I'm offline. Did our internet just go down? Well, dang. So I'm going to pause the video and I'll be right back. So it does indeed look like our internet just went down. It was my first time actually using a laptop to do these questions rather than printing them off. That'll teach me for trying to save the planet and the people on the planet. But luckily, the questions were on Facebook, and I happen to have Facebook on my phone because I am so technologically savvy. And so I'm just going to open up there, just through my phone. So I'm just going to answer a few more questions right here, and then we'll close up. So let's jump right through these. So we got Tommy LaChapelle. When are you going to release a Stormcast Eternals narrative campaign or Yogg-Vir in Tor sequel? Thank you very much. Keep up the good work. I want to do more Age of Sigmar stuff, for sure. Would it be a Yogg-Vir and Tor sequel? I see. What I actually thought of for a Yogg-Vir and Tor sequel is I wanted to do the Age of Sigmar role-playing game and have Steve and Luca play Yogg-Vir and Tor in that. And so that's what I want to do. So if you want that, please leave a comment below. I know you're leaving comments for Josh, so just make sure, like, if you're leaving a comment for me to respond to things I say, just put Matt dash and then leave a comment. And that way he's able to quickly filter through which ones are for him and which ones are for me. And if there's already somebody who put a comment saying, yes, I want that, then just thumbs it up. And that way I can see just how many people are actually excited for that kind of thing. I've been thinking about actually implementing a way for Vault members to vote on the content that we do. I don't want to completely hand over control that way, because in the end, if the Vault members all vote for something, but it's something I really don't want to do, I don't want to feel like I'm obligated to do it, but at the same time, it might be more like I've got 3 ideas of what I want to do, and it'd be like you guys get to vote to see which one I'm going to do. And so there's still something, so that Vault members still have a say. So I'm thinking of doing that. That might be an interesting thing to do. In fact, right after this, I'm going to write down on my big list of web development stuff, being able to add polls and stuff into the Vault. Oliver Haywood, what with the current turmoil in the hobby, if you were able to talk about it, what are your thoughts on the current situation? That's a good question. I don't think that the current turmoil in the hobby is any more than it usually is. See, the internet is a wonderful amplifier of negativity. It's also a wonderful tool for positivity as well. But unfortunately, negativity is going to be amplified more because it's easy. It's just easy. If I wanted to get a video that has a lot of views, all I have to do is put up a video that says, I hate Games Workshop, and boom, I'm going to be able to get a lot of views there because people are going to be like, ooh, this is controversial. I like this. That's easy. Trying to stay positive in the hobby, that takes more work, because obviously there are things that we don't like. There's a release of a codex of our own that we love so much, and we've put hours of time, hundreds of hours of time into painting and thousands of dollars into making, and then they come up with a codex that makes some crap. That's upsetting, right? Like there's real money put into this hobby, a lot of it too. And so people get really invested in it, as they should, because, you know, if you're not going to get invested into it, then, you know, I guess you can just kind of partially get into it casually. There's nothing wrong with that. But yeah, like the fan animation stuff, or, you know, all the, you know, 3D printing. This is all par for the course. I've been in this hobby long enough to see that there's no new turmoil going on here. It's just people like to rag on the big company. That's really what it comes down to. So that's my thoughts on it, is that stay positive. If you're enjoying the hobby, enjoy the hobby. Play, have fun, spread the fun. Don't spread all the negativity stuff. Thomas Whitworth, not sure if this is a stupid question, but here goes. As I've always been told, there are no stupid questions, just stupid people. Just kidding, maybe. Do you like playing any editions of Warhammer Fantasy? Was hoping to see you have a game with Steve using the Warhammer Armies Project rules in the future. Now, I already talked about that, so you can actually go on his channel, and there should already be one there. Or maybe, I don't know if he posts it right away. I think he posts it like the next week, but maybe you'll catch it live depending on when you see this. Chris Maker, if your life depended on it and you had to play only one Age of Sigmar faction for the rest of 3rd edition, which would it be and why? Cities of Sigmar. I know maybe that's cheating because it lets me do a lot of variety, but I really like Cities of Sigmar, and it lets you kind of play all the different factions, so maybe that's cheating. But that's why I like Cities of Sigmar, because you can create really interesting themed armies, and I like the way that works. So that would be it. That's an easy answer, actually. Not because they're particularly good. There are builds that are good, but overall they're not great. But there's a ton of variety in there, and that's what I really appreciate. Been a Vault member for many years and will be for years to come. It's worth it alone and sheer entertainment value. Keep up the good work, guys. All the best. Thank you, Chris. Jonathan Smith, what has been, in your experience, the single most valuable rule about running a War Games content company? If you're asking about specifically War Games content company, that's an interesting one. If I was just to say, if you had just removed War Games content and just said running a company, single most valuable rule, I would say, is learning to pivot. Like there's a lot of things. There's, you know, working hard and understanding money and budgeting and understanding analytics and all that. But if there's one big lesson I would give people, it would be to learn to pivot. And what I mean by that is we go into business with ideas of what we want to do and what we want to make money doing. And I think most often those ideas aren't our best ones because we don't know what's really going to work. And so you go in and you try those things, but you should be trying out kind of peripheral things as well. You should be kind of, it's, you know, trying lots of different things. And then you find which ones kind of stick, and then you do more of those. So that's kind of how we started. We started off saying, you know, we're going to make wargaming videos, and we're going to have an online store selling Games Workshop stuff and other wargaming stuff, and that's how we're going to make our money. Obviously, we don't have an online store anymore except for our merchandise, and we have focused on making the videos to make money. And even then, there's been pivots along the way about what we cover, you know, going over to battle reports and then eventually introducing narrative campaigns, all that kind of stuff too. So I think the ability to pivot, and there might even be more pivoting for MiniWarGaming in the future. There's things we're working on, which I'm not going to talk about here because they're still in the early stages, which will introduce new ways for us to kind of make revenue in the wargaming industry. And depending on how well that goes, we might pivot more heavily into that. So it's being able to pivot, being able to adapt to what's happening, and being willing to abandon old ideas for things that you didn't expect to work well but have. And that needs to continue because things will then stop working and you need to pivot again. Jono Milligan, in which order are the Chaos Gods your favorite? Tzeentch, Nurgle, Khorne, Slaanesh. That's easy. I love Tzeentch. It's the models are cool. The lore of Tzeentch is cool. Nurgle is my next favorite because I actually really like the lore of Nurgle. I'm reading the Plague Garden one for Age of Sigmar. There's people talking right outside my door. Anyway. Yeah, the lore of Nurgle is really cool. They're reading Plague Garden book in Age of Sigmar in that series with the Hallowed Knights, I think they are. It's been a while since I read it. Really gave me new insights into Nurgle, and that was really cool. And then Khorne's cool because it's, you know, punchy. And then Slaanesh, well, it's Slaanesh. Patty Murphy, what is your fondest moment since you started wargaming? One moment? Oh man, I don't know. There's been so many games where there's been moments. Like the ones that stand out the most, there's one in the Space Hulk Deathwatch narrative campaign. I was GMing. Steve and Quirk were playing a mission, and it came down to the wire, and it was so tense that when they finally rolled the dice and they won the mission, that they actually hugged and were almost in tears. Like, for real, because of how stressful the mission was. It was a random number of turns, and it was just a hopeless mission, and they just kept, I'm like, oh, crap, we're going to another turn, you guys are dead, and somehow they'd survive, and I'd be like, okay, if we end now, you'll be fine. Oh, no, we're doing another turn, you're totally dead. And we did that like so many times, and then finally the game stopped, and there was just that moment. So I'd say that's probably one of my favorite moments. Luke Mulholland, what has been your favorite narrative campaign, and why? This might sound funny, or it might sound like cliche, but I keep enjoying them more and more the more I do them. So it's usually my latest ones. Like when I did the Hunting the Fallen Dark Angel campaign with Steve, I would say that was my favorite. It introduced the elements of actually having graphics of the planets, and then giving Steve options. Here are several missions, which ones would you like to pursue? And based on what he pursued, the story evolved from it. And I couldn't anticipate just how cool that was going to be. And I loved the story that emerged, because it was like partially the story that I kind of set up, and then partially the story that Steve forced to happen, which ended up breeding a whole new story that I was not expecting. So then I took that same format to a certain degree, and I did the Conquest of Blood narrative campaign with Luca, and a similar thing kind of happened, and it was a lot of fun. But now I'm filming a narrative campaign of the post-apocalyptic one with Dave and Josh, and I have to say it's been the most fun I've had in a long time. But that could be because I was off for a month, and I've just been itching to play This Is Not a Test. And so it honestly feels like I keep learning new cool ways to do these narrative campaigns. And so each time we do another one, we have so much fun doing them. And but if I have to look back, like say, like, you know, not including the latest few that I've done, which one's been my favorite? Space Hulk Deathwatch is definitely up there. Augustine Station was up there for sure. The Gorka Morka one was a ton of fun. The season one, Gorka Morka 1, season 1, ton of fun. I'm just rhyming a lot here. That was great. And God, there's been so many good ones. There's been so many good ones. Storms of Ixia was great. I really enjoyed that one. Dang it, I'm forgetting a lot of them too. I'd have to have a list in front of me to really go. But yeah, that's going to be my answer to that. Nathan Krulicki, if you completely filled the toilet at the bunker with regular-sized marshmallows, how many flushes would it take to empty the bowl? I never want to find that out, because then I don't think you'd ever be able to flush that many marshmallows down. Chris Frazier, Codex Creep, discuss. Not a new thing, always been a thing. It's just faster now than it used to be. Codex Creep, for those of you that don't know for some reason, is that new codexes tend to be more powerful than previous codexes. And so over the course of a few years, if your codex came out first, and you're like, yay, first edition, it's like, that sucks to be you, because it's going to suck the longest, typically. I think it's a development and design issue. I wish that companies, especially Games Workshop, wouldn't do Codex Creep. It's like they're always trying to one-up themselves. And the problem with one-upping yourself is, over time, it gets ridiculous. Like now, we need 2 wound Marines. But then once we got 2 wound Marines, we need to increase the damage of all the weapons, because 2 wound Marines are too many wounds. Now that we're increasing the damage of the weapons, we need to introduce things that'll keep things alive. To the point now where if you want to kill something, you most likely can, which is not necessarily a bad thing. But then when they want to introduce a model like Gazgul or Nightbringer, where they're like, this is a model that has no excuse to have 40 wounds, because it's just Gazgul, like he's awesome and all. And so how do we let them survive when there's so many things that deal mortal wounds and so much damage dealing now because of this Codex Creep? Well, what do? They introduce a mechanic that says, I guess he can't take more than this much damage per turn. And that's not an answer. That is not an answer. That is a horrible Band-Aid. And so, I don't know, I think there should be more effort kept in balancing. I know it's a tough thing to do. Balancing might always be hard, but Codex Creep could be addressed at least. That you can at least not just make a codex and it's just obviously better than all the previous ones. So I don't like Codex Creep, but it's been around forever. Forever. I've never seen Games Workshop not do it. And that's since 4th edition. So Craig Parker, ever consider doing a Tyranid Deathwatch campaign where the Nids have the kill team? Maybe a team of warriors and a prime. Not exactly that, but I had thought of doing a Tyranid campaign where you inspired. There's a StarCraft 2 mission when you're playing as Kerrigan, where you infect a single Protoss, and then that Protoss, you birth a little thing, and then you go around eating biomass on the Protoss ship, and you evolve into a queen, which can do certain things, and then the queen evolves into a bigger queen, until it takes over the whole ship. So I'm doing a campaign based on that idea, like. Imperium scientists are illegally or not unsanctionedly working on some Tyranid bioforms to try to study them, and they break out of the lab, and those few bioforms you have to control them, but the defenses of the lab would be way too much, so you have to be more stealthy at first and make your choices of what you do. I don't know how I'd write the game rules for that. That could be complicated, but I love the concept of it where you evolve. Even having a custom Tyranid model where it's okay, what do you want to add on as a biomorph next? Scything talons or a flesh borer? That kind of thing. And he slowly gets bigger, and then it morphs into a bigger one, which then can choose different things as well. So I'd love to do something like that. That could be a lot of fun. So that's what I would probably do with Tyranids. As a kill team thing, I don't know. They don't really function that way, right? So it doesn't make sense. No offense. All right, let's refresh this one more time. I'm getting hungry. It is my lunchtime. Oh, I think that's actually all the comments. It's funny, they all came at once. Not most relevant. Newest. Oh, no. Yeah, no, I've already answered all these. Yeah, okay. Well, I think we did. That was a lot of comments. We went through a lot today. So thank you very much for joining me today. Thank you for your questions. Remember, next week is Josh, so you can leave questions for him in the comments below. And yeah, that's it. So happy wargaming.